It is externally observable that the consciousness of a person in the hours prior to his death gradually retreats. He seems to fall asleep. The living symptoms disappear. But what does a person really experience internally? Does he really fall asleep and becomes completely unconscious as soon as death occurs? Very often there is a last flare-up before the soul disappears from this world. And sometimes people give us an insight, report what they are experiencing. We also have the reports of near-death experiences, which give us really incredible insights into the experiences of a dying person. And we have the records in the spiritual scriptures of highly advanced civilizations, which explain in detail the systematic changes of consciousness of a person at the point of death. In the transition phase before leaving its body, the soul may experience something that people around that person cannot experience and therefore can't relate to. I must go in. The fog is rising. Emily Dickinson. It is very beautiful over there. Thomas Alva Edison. Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow. Steve Jobs. Steve's final words were monosyllables, repeated 3 times. Before embarking, he looked at his sister Patty, then for a long time at his children, and then at his life's partner Lorraine, and then, over their shoulders, past them. Depending on their consciousness and their next destination according to their karma, dying people may also have horrible experiences, like the following. My grandfather on his deathbed said, "They have no eyes." It still gives me chills. I had a resident at end of life on comfort care. I went in to say goodbye, and she opened her eyes, looking right at me, and said, "Help! They are torturing me." It was awful. She was dragged to hell and gone, but obviously still feeling pain. A nurse reports about a young man who was member of a gang. His last days, hours, moments, he was angry. The family called me into the room and told me they thought he was going. His lovely mother, in her dearest attempt, whispering to him to go towards the light, to Jesus. With his dying breath, he opened his eyes, looked at her and said, "F your Jesus." A second or two later, he slowly turned his head to the left and got the most horrific look on his face, as if he was looking at something we couldn't see, and horrified, like in a bad movie. His face contorted, and he screamed with his last breath, eyes wide, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh no!" Then made a guttural noise, and promptly fell back into the bed and died. Every family member was shaken and too frightened to speak, and I left the room and took 2 days off. I don't care if I never find out what he saw. My grandmother, when dying, told my mum, her daughter, "No, I don't want to go yet," and kept asking my mum, "Why are they here?" She realized she was making the transition. These last words from the dying can give us a few clues. But the reports of people with near-death experiences give us detailed accounts on what the soul experiences while and after leaving its body. Many tell us of out-of-the-body experiences, of meetings with celestial beings, of light and love, of reliving some key moments in their life, together with an opportunity to learn something from it. But some also tell us of really horrible experiences. In the old scriptures, like for example the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that it is a state of mind at death that takes you to your next destination. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajantyante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sadatat bhava bhavita. The state of mind at the point of death depends mainly on the nature of your mind, which you have been cultivating throughout your life. In one sense, all your life is just a preparation for the moment of your death, because that is such a crucial moment for your destiny. But the state of your mind also depends on the particular circumstances while you are dying. Your bodily situation, if you have pain or not, as well as your surroundings and association. While their bodily functions reduce, people withdraw their consciousness from the external world and enter into an inner experience that cannot be perceived or understood by the people around them. Their minds are fixed on the essence of what their lives were dedicated to, its main experiences and teachings. And they start to envision their next destination. And sometimes the method of transportation to that destination becomes visible to them. A dying person isn't distracted anymore by all the things that are so important for us in our daily lives. He is retreating from that. He might be suffering from his bodily condition. He might feel very weak or sleep a lot, even seem to lose awareness completely. But at the same time, they often see or experience things that are completely beyond our vision and our ability to follow. As a soul is eternal, it is going somewhere else when this mortal body ceases to exist. We can only relate to the soul as long as it is still in this present body, up to the point where it goes somewhere else. This process of leaving one's body at the time of death does not happen unconsciously. When you hear people talking about their near-death experiences, you know that the soul is completely conscious while leaving its body, although its body is completely shut down. And the very same thing is described in the old scriptures. The whole process of transmigration of the soul is elaborately described there. There are also examples given in the form of stories, which illustrate what the soul might be going through. I would like to tell the story of Ajamil, who had a frightening experience at death, with a game changer in the middle of that experience. The story shows, on the one hand, what kind of impact the life that someone lives has on his consciousness at the time of death, and what consequence that has on the experience he has to go through. And at the same time, what saved him from that situation. In his case, it was a production of a particular word. Sound is what influences our consciousness more than anything else. And if the sound is spiritual by nature, it can have a miraculous effect on the soul. Ajamil was a well-educated, kind young man who lived in the city of Kanyakupcha. But due to his past activities, to his karma, something happened in his life, and so he went astray from his path of purity. He somehow became attracted to a prostitute, and he started living with her and gradually became degraded. More and more he gave trouble to others. He cheated them, mistreated them. He became a robber. This was a way he maintained his livelihood and his wife and children. Together with a prostitute, he had 10 sons. And the youngest son, with the name Narain, was very, very dear to Ajamil. When the time of death arrived for this foolish, degraded Ajamil, he somehow started to think exclusively of his son Narayana, who was still a child. At the very point of his death, Ajamil suddenly saw 3 awkward-looking persons with deformed bodily features, furs, twisted faces, and hair standing erect on their bodies. They had come with ropes in their hand to take Ajamil away to the abode of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. When he saw them, he became completely bewildered. But because of his attachment to his son, who was playing in a short distance, he started to loudly call him by his name. In this way, Ajamil, at the point of his death, chanted the holy name of Narayana. Narayana is the name of the Absolute, the original Supreme Person. The sound of the name of the Absolute completely changed the atmosphere. Sound can have this powerful influence. And this is a fact that spiritualists take advantage of by practices like mantra meditation. And one of the most powerful mantras is Om Namo Narayana. So here Ajamil was calling his son. But because the name Narayana indicates the Supreme, it was acting like a mantra. It completely changed the atmosphere and also Ajamil's own consciousness, who suddenly remembered the Supreme in his heart. He had done spiritual practices in his early life, and he had an experience of his relationship with the Supreme, with the origin of all existence. But somehow, due to absorption in sinful activities, he later forgot all of it. His calling out for Narayana elevated his consciousness to the spiritual plane, where he again felt connected to the Supreme Lord. Someone who leaves his body at death with this kind of consciousness directly goes to the spiritual world, the world that is beyond the material plane, beyond even any concept of heaven or hell that different religions hold. The order carriers of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, came to get Ajamil, and they were about to snatch the soul of Ajamil from the core of his heart. But because Ajami was calling out for Narayan, the Supreme, the messengers of the Supreme also arrived at that spot to take his soul to the Supreme destination. The Yamadutas were about to take the soul of Ajamil to hell for punishment. But the Vishnudutas, another name for Narayana is Vishnu, forbade them to do so because Ajamil was calling out for their master. Anyone who remembers the Supreme at death reaches the Supreme abode without fail. This is a spiritual law that overrides all kinds of cosmic laws, like that of karma and reincarnation. The Bhagavad Gita explains, Antakale chamam eva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samat bhavam yatinastyatra samshayaha. And whoever at the time of death quits his body remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. It is said that the Yamadutas had never experienced such a situation. They only knew that every soul, according to their activities in life and their consequent state of consciousness at death, had to be taken to their respective destination, usually their next body. But in the case of a sinful person like Ajamil, first to hell for punishment. Like a physical law or any other cosmic law, the law of karma is insurmountable. When the spiritual soul acts within the material world, it is completely bound by its laws. But if the soul is able to follow an authentic spiritual path and remembers its inner spiritual nature as an integral part of the spiritual whole, only then material laws can't bind it anymore. Actually, the soul is not of this material world. It is completely different by nature. But because of our material consciousness, we become bound by its laws. In material consciousness, when our consciousness is covered by matter, we cannot perceive anything but matter, and thus we identify with our material bodies and material minds and act as if we belonged to this world. The Vishnudutas explained to the Yamadutas that Ajamil no longer belonged to the jurisdiction of this world, and that they would take his soul to the spiritual world, his eternal abode. Now Ajamil's change of consciousness at death took an uncommon turn that is so rare that it was recorded in the scriptures. What is common for every soul when it comes to leave its body is that it withdraws its consciousness from the body and then remembers the sum total of its past life. And in this state of consciousness is taken and has an inner experience how it is taken to its next destination. We retreat our consciousness from this body and have an inner experience how we are taken into our next body. Life is eternal and continuous. Nothing just happens randomly, out of the blue, without any sense or meaning. And you can experience that when you are following an authentic spiritual path. You don't have to wait until death comes to experience that you are eternal and that your life is continuous. You can experience your inner nature as a spiritual soul right now by powerful spiritual practices. This channel is dedicated to giving you that kind of experience. And here you find one method that I personally find extremely helpful on that path.